Eros Meets Agape is a bi-weekly heart-to-heart conversation about love, sex, marriage, and relationships. Everyone wants to love and be loved, but everyone does not know how to give and receive the love they both want and need. Intimacy and passion are essential, yet mean nothing if there isn't unconditional and sacrificial love, which is the foundation for any lasting relationship. Dr. Saudia is a licensed marriage and family therapist and minister. Let's listen in as she shares how to create healthier and happier relationships.
Hey there, family. What a wonderful day it is here in America. It is Thanksgiving. So happy Thanksgiving, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Eros Meets Agape podcast. And today I'm getting all in your head. So what does that mean? Let me ask you this. How many times have you talked yourself out of doing something? Or how often do you have to mull something over and over in your head and just ruminate on a thought, thinking about it over and over to the place where you may or maybe not talk yourself out of doing something or accomplishing something, achieving something? Or are you a person where maybe you torture yourself mentally only to find out later that it really wasn't as bad as you thought? We get in our own way when we get in our head, and we have to learn the things that cause us to get in our head so that we can learn the tricks and tools in order to work ourselves out of that bad habit. So today I'm getting all in your head and I'm helping you to get out of your own head. So with that being said, let's head on over into the classroom. I will see you in a second. Hey there, family. Happy Thanksgiving to you all. It is Thanksgiving Day here in America. And so everyone who's listening today or sometime thereafter, I still want to wish you a happy Thanksgiving. And I hope your Thanksgiving was well here in 2022. I know for me, this year went by fast. I get it. It's the same time every year. We get the same amount of time, of course, unless it's a leap year. But I always feel like it moves so very fast, but it's really funny because I've noticed if I ask anyone in their 20s or younger, time goes by very slow for them. And I'm thinking like, are we living the same life in the same world? Because mine, it seems like I open up my eyes on Monday and I blink and it's Friday. And things are moving so fast that it's like, wow, I have so much to do in order to catch up. But I'm grateful. I'm thankful and I'm blessed on this Thanksgiving Day. Am I saying my life is perfect? People, believe me, no, it is not. But I'm definitely thankful. I'm definitely grateful. And I am blessed in the fact that I'm thankful that I have a platform in which to share counseling information, coaching information to individuals. Of course, remember, I'm not your therapist. I'm just a therapist sharing this source of information to be a resource and a tool for you in order to help you and your loved ones to be able to better themselves mentally, emotionally, and relationally. And then I believe I'm grateful in the fact that I can see all of the things that I believe that God has gifted me with, given me, bestowed upon me, or allowed me to be a help and a vessel into someone else. So I'm grateful for that. I know whenever I go to teach, I always tell my students at the end of the year, and sometimes throughout, that I am happy to serve you because that's what I am. I'm serving them in a capacity. Sure, they're gaining, from my knowledge and expertise, but it's a privilege to be able to teach because you're not a good teacher if you aren't going to learn from your students. You should always be evolving. We have never fully arrived. You fully arrive when you get to heaven. Until then, you are always learning and growing and evolving. And then I believe I am blessed just all around. Now, I'm not going to lie. I told you my life is not perfect. And there are some things I'm still wanting, desiring, and believing God for that I have not yet to see physically in my life as of today. But it doesn't mean that it's not coming. So I'm blessed in the fact that I still have faith. I'm blessed with all the things that God has given me. And those are nice. But more importantly, I'm blessed with the relationships that I have in life. I've truly been blessed in the fact that with family and with loved ones and family, meaning friends that have become family. I'm blessed. I mean, I really am blessed in the fact that my core circle, they accept me and love me for who I am. I don't have to put on airs. I'm okay to present myself in front of them, knowing that they'll just laugh it off or tell me the truth or be there to support me regardless of what it is. And I'm just gonna be honest, I'm blessed to know Jesus, because let me tell y'all, there'd be some things that I would not have, be, or even have the possibility of achieving if it weren't for him. So, not that you asked me, but that's why I am thankful, grateful, and blessed on this wonderful Thanksgiving Day. But enough about me. I hope your day is going well with it. Like I said, you're listening to this episode on Thanksgiving Day as you are cooking your meal, or in the event that you're listening to it sometime thereafter. I pray you all have had a happy and blessed Thanksgiving 2022. So let's go ahead and dig into our topic today. We're talking about getting in your head and how being in your head really distorts how we see as well as how we perceive things, because when we mull things over in our minds over and over again, we are replaying this situation and we get into a bad habit. Two things can happen: anxiety or depression can take place if we stay here for too long. So what does that mean? Why would I say that? I said it could. I didn't say it would, but let me give you examples of how ruminating over thoughts that are negative in our heads repeatedly, or rehearsing things repeatedly, can cause us to be in a place where we are, in essence, what I identify, or not just I identify with this, but meaning therapists across the world, or any Aaron Beck therapist that is a cognitive behavioral therapist or a cognitive therapist, we call this stinking thinking. And I did an episode, I believe it was episode 27, if not, it was episode 26, where we get in our thoughts. And this is a great exercise to do after you have recognized what types of thoughts you are experiencing. That's a great exercise. So if you can, go back to that episode. But if you are really just getting in your head, this stinking thinking is something that causes us to really get in a bad habit, which can lead us, if we're not careful, into depression or anxiety. Now, why would I say that? Here's what happens when we're in our head and we are mulling over a thought and we are repeating it over and over again, and we're thinking about it repetitively over and over again. We are ruminating on this negative thought. As we do that, depending upon the way in which we look at something, it can cause us to go back in the past and ruminate over and over again, or it can cause us to be in the present, but ruminate on something that has not yet even taken place. But that constant repetitive negative talk can prevent us from accomplishing future things because of the anxiety that it will cause. So what does that look like? Think of it like a scale, okay? Like a timeline. On one end of this timeline is the past. The middle of the timeline is the present. And then the far end of the timeline, which is the right end of the timeline, that is the future. So the left, we have the past, in the middle is the present, and on the far right is the future. Whenever we mull something over and over again in our heads on what we should have done, I could have done this, I should have said this, I didn't mean to do that, instead I should have done this. Those are thoughts that are really pertaining to the past. If we mull those over and over again in our head, it can cause depression because we are really saddened or hurt internally about something that didn't take place the way we desired it, or the way that we had hoped it would have taken place, or believing if we maybe would have said or done something differently, then the outcome would have changed, and therefore our life would not presently be in the state that it is in. Now, don't get me wrong. Here's the point I want you to look at here. Of course, there are definitely things in our lives, whereas if we had done them differently, we would have a better outcome. I mean, and not to pick on this population, but to really just give you a great example, I'm certain there are numerous people in jail or prison that are saying to themselves, if I had not have done blank or said blank, maybe I wouldn't be here today. I'm certain there are people that have had that thought. And as a result, they are mulling that over and over in their head. That's the far end of the spectrum. But here's the point that would apply for them and anyone else who has not even experienced something to that level of tragedy, right? Meaning, mulling it over in our heads does not change the fact that it happened. We have to get to a place where we accept what has happened and we have made a decision to move forward. And in moving forward, it requires us to forgive ourselves or another person. So people who mull things over and over in their head about the past, I should have done this, I should have said that. We have not gotten to a place where we have forgiven ourselves. And we need to do this. Otherwise, we'll repeat this thing over and over and over again. And it's not going to change the outcome because the outcome has already taken place and it is immortalized in stone. Okay. That can lead to depression if you do not get out of your head. You must get out of your head. But you also must recognize, what is the thought that I continue to have? What is this repetitive thought? Now, remember I said you can develop depression or anxiety. It doesn't mean that you will. It just means if you continue in that current state, you could do that. But you could also cause sadness for yourself, loss of faith and belief in yourself, loss of hope in yourself. Those things aren't depression, but they are things that are saddened because they keep you from living the life that you should be living, okay? Now, remember on the other end of the spectrum, we have anxiety. Anxiety is future oriented, meaning these are things that we have not yet even arrived to this state or this place. And we are so busy in our head trying to figure out how it should go that we can't even enjoy the moment. Sometimes we get so much in our head that we forget about the people, the places, and the things that we are still responsible for today. And we still need to show up being fully present with our loved ones in our present day, okay? Anxiety or worry about the future prevents that from happening because we're in our head saying, I should do this, I should do that. Now, remember, it kind of sounds like woulda, coulda, shoulda, right? So if only I would have done this, if only I had done that, or I should have done this. That's a past tense thought. Whereas I should, I need to do this, or I'm thinking about how I'm going to do something or how something should go. I'm trying to control the situation because I don't want to be hurt. I don't want to be disappointed. And I don't want to be let down, okay? Those are anxiety, future-oriented thoughts. People, let me help you out here. You cannot change the past, so don't worry about what you should have, would have, could have did. It's gone. It's past us. Hopefully, you have forgiven yourself or the other person. You have learned the lesson in that so you don't repeat it. But here's a little thing that you should know. If you experience something and it didn't go well, it will come around again. So take notes because when it circles back, you want to get it right the second time. When it comes to future-oriented things, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but those that are future-oriented with regard to their thinking and they're in their head a lot, you are experiencing issues of control, meaning you don't like when your life is not under control, meaning of course, no one likes chaos. That's not what I'm saying. But meaning, if you aren't in control of things, if you aren't spearheading the thing, if you aren't guiding or driving the conversation or the whatever it may be, you're in your head a lot. And when people are in their heads because they are trying to prevent the wrong thing from happening, it's the difference between just wanting everything to be safe and okay and going the way that it should, most definitely. So for example, I recently hosted the Black and Bling ladies event. Shout out to everyone who came. I appreciate and love you all. Some things to clean up, but I'm glad that it was a good event for mostly everyone and that everyone enjoyed themselves. Okay. But I was in my head afterwards, and I was in my head thinking like, I should do this next time. I should do that next time. Now, I'm not in my head thinking in the regard to the next year's event and I'm anxiety provoked about it. I'm in my head in regard to, okay, how I can clean this up so I can make it better for every attendee, not just the majority of attendees, making certain that I incorporate everyone into the things that we have for the evening. I'm thinking in regard to improving the situation by things that I can change to make it better for everyone. Now, that's future-oriented thinking, but I'm not mulling about it. I'm not to the place where I'm trying to control people and things in the future in order to make it happen. But in the same sense, the event is over, right? So because it's over, if I'm being completely honest, you all know I'm very transparent here on this platform. If I'm being completely honest, there were some people that really did not enjoy themselves that well. And I can understand why. There were pieces of the evening that, in essence, make a long story short, I gave out some prizes for people who we went through some different friend-oriented games and activities for the evening, but it was a part of the entertainment and it went in different segments to get us down to a finalist, basically. Well, what I didn't realize was when I wheedled us down to the finalists, the rest of the crowd still should have been incorporated into everything that we were planning, even for the finalists. I did not do that. So as a result, some people were a little bored. And I can't make everybody happy. And I'm completely aware of that and I'm okay with that. But I can make things better. And so if I'm in my head about that, then I would be, man, I should have did this and that would have changed things. No, because if I stay there, then it can cause me to be saddened for the people that pay their money that did not have the best time that they were hoping to have. Okay. But I can be in my head to plan better for the next event. And there's a difference. And I'm hoping you're seeing that with the example. If we stay in our mental space in our head long enough, and we are not doing something to move forward or to move out of that thing, then we can cause ourselves to either, like I said, develop or build sadness and depression because we hang out there for too long, or we can be future oriented. The day hasn't even come yet. And we're so anxiety provoked that we are totally in our heads and not allowing ourselves to enjoy the moment. So I'm going to show you some different thinking habits that people experience that are unhealthy. We call it stinking thinking. And we identify this in the clinician world, mental health clinician world, as cognitive distortions. Now, it's speculative whether or not there are 10, 12, or 15 when it comes to these items. The majority of what I see are the 10 that I'm going to give you. However, if you ever looked it up, you would probably see articles and things that people have Googled or Wikipedia, I guess, that would have 12, maybe 15. I'm just here to let you know, yes, those 12 to 15 do exist. Do we really see them a lot? No, because remember, when you're doing something, you're thinking of the majority, and the majority of people will experience these 10 things that I'm going to give you with regard to cognitive distortions. Now, first, let me explain what it is, okay? So now that you all have the blueprint for how cognitive distortions work, meaning they're either future-oriented or past-oriented, I get it. I know you all probably thought I was just talking just to be talking. I was laying foundation, people. I was laying foundation. So now that we have the foundation laid and you understand that past-oriented thinking will cause us to have sadness, develop depression if we are not careful and aware and taking charge of our thoughts. Future-oriented thinking can cause anxiety and cause us to really not deal with the issues of control that we have because we are trying to basically be the boss of the future and it has yet to arrive. But both prevent us from being in the present. So let me give you an idea as to what these cognitive distortions are. And as I'm discussing them, just ask yourself whether or not this applies, okay? So think of you and I as a mock coaching session, and I am asking you Do you experience these things, these types of thinking? And then remember when I told you about that episode 26 or 27? Sorry, guys, I can't remember which one. I know it was one of those two, most definitely. I just can't remember which of the two, which was about our thought processes. And I believe I called it stinking thinking or in our thoughts, something like that. But it's one of those two episodes. That will be a great exercise. If you find yourself on this list of cognitive distortions, that exercise will really be great for you to be able to track triggers, to be able to see, when this thing pops up, what causes it to pop up? Is it a certain people? Is it certain situations? Is it certain emotions? Or is it just, happenstance when just normal life occurrences that aren't pleasant happen? And this is how my mode of thinking transforms when I have something that I'm trying to deal with. You want to be able to see that. Therefore, you can be in front of a situation before it happens. So I always tell clients, when I think of everything, I try to put it on a scale for them to be able to identify. And when I'm telling them on this scale of 1 to 10, 10 is like the far end. We have we've blown our gasket, right? 10 is too late to be in charge of our thoughts. We are already flooded in our emotions. We are overwhelmed in our thoughts, and we need time to be able to rest, get ourselves together mentally before we, can move forward, whether with ourselves, regulating our emotions, or with other people. 10 is too late. And if I'm being honest, 9, you're already headed to 10. So that's not going to work either. 8, you're pretty much getting there. You want to control this thing when you notice it. So guess what? That means when you're pretty much at a 5, where you're noticing you're starting to be bothered. Not you are bothered, but you're starting to be bothered, because that's when you have the greatest control of your mind. And you want to be able to make healthy decisions, so therefore you don't regret anything that you do or say. And in the same sense, you're able to make wise decisions so that anything that is future oriented, you did it with the right frame of mind. Okay. So as we go through this list, just see if this applies to you. Now, don't go diagnosing other people. Just give them the episode to listen to. Don't diagnose people, y'all. It's not good for you. But if you notice your significant other or your child in any of these, the episode is going to be helpful so that you are understanding of them, okay? You don't want to diagnose them. You don't want to do anything like that, but you want to be understanding of them. It opens various perspectives. All right, so let's get started. The first cognitive distortion is identified as all or nothing thinking. All right, it's pretty self-explanatory. And it really just means you look at things in absolute terms. So therefore, it is black or white. There is no gray. It's either this or that. Nothing is in between. And you have to just keep in mind that life isn't that way. Now, I get it. You either are or are not pregnant, right? But you can't be in between pregnant, right? But when it comes to certain situations, when we think of morals, there's a large spectrum with regard to morals, because what is very objective for one person can be subjective for someone else, right? So you have to think of it. Do we send someone to prison who stole medication because they could not afford it and their child was dying? But if they got this medication in 24 hours, their child would be healed. A black and white thinker would say, no, it's either right or it's wrong. There is no in between. So they stole, so they go to prison. Yeah, but at the end of the day, it's like, well, you do see that this person doesn't have a history of this. They normally wouldn't have done that. So I really wouldn't do that to them because that was an extreme circumstance, right? So it means that there's something in between. But an all or nothing thinker will either see it as black or white. Again, nothing in between. The second cognitive distortion is called overgeneralization. This basically means that you view a negative event as a never-ending pattern of defeat. So it could just be something just normal, and such as you got stuck in traffic, but you look at it as, oh, No matter what I do, I get up on time early every day. No matter what I do, I just always get late to work because I always go the wrong way, or nothing ever works out for me. And you look at life as defeating because you are overgeneralizing. Some things don't have anything to do with us. It's just a pattern of how it fits. And things like that. Whereas we're like, oh, I always get in the long line, or oh, I always get in the lane where there's traffic, or, I always get behind the person that has the complaint. So they have to send the manager, and then I'm stuck behind, whatever that is. I always like to look at that as God protecting us, or God trying to put something in us. In most cases, for me, it's patience. But in the same sense, maybe losing those keys in the morning that put you 3 minutes behind saved you from being caught up in that accident, but you don't know about the accident, right? Because you avoided it because you were 3 minutes late looking for those keys. Yeah, angels helped you out in that regard, right? God was looking out for you. So you have to look at it not as defeat and not overgeneralizing everything, okay? The third cognitive distortion is called a mental filter. So what is a mental filter? It means that you dwell on negatives and you ignore the positives. So something good can be taking place, but you don't see it because you automatically will push the positive stuff to the side and only see negative things. And that's because you have a history of doing that, meaning you have a history of you or others pointing out negative things. So you have become a mastermind at seeing the negative, but you have a lot of room for growth for seeing the positives. So people who have that mental filter where they only see the negative, I just always say, you know what, just pretend as if you are the security guard in a building and you're looking at all of the camera screens of all the angles in the building. Don't just look at one camera lens or one screen, look at them all. What do you see? You're going to see different angles. So those that have that mental filter, I always like to say, okay, great, you pointed out the negative. Now let's look at the positives that exist. The key is getting into the practice of seeing and identifying the positives. Don't worry about believing them just yet. To ask you to believe them when you only see the negative is darn near impossible. So don't worry about believing them. Just try identifying them first. And then over time, after you develop a habit of now seeing the positive, that's no longer ignoring it, well, then guess what? You won't be so quick to see the negatives, but instead you'll become better at seeing the positives and seeing how it works for you or whomever is involved, okay? The fourth cognitive distortion is discounting the positives. Now, this may sound a little similar to the mental filter, but here's the thing when it comes to discounting the positives. Here you insist that your accomplishments or your positive qualities don't count. So in the mental filter, you only focused on the negatives. You never saw the positives because you ignored them, all right? Whereas here in the discounting the positives cognitive distortion, you see the positive, but when it is brought up by you or other people, you discount it. So I know a few people who believe like this. Let me tell you firsthand, just stop talking to them, because no matter how much you try to pour into them and help them to see good, they're not going to see what they do not want to see. They are not going to believe what they do not already believe. So they have great accomplishments. I know someone who really has some wonderful skills, great education, is loved by many people, but they don't see that. Or there's always a reason why that shouldn't count. You cannot convince someone who is discounting the positive to believe what it is that you're saying. Here's the reason. Let me give you an example. Let's just say me and someone who is discounting the positive are in a race against each other, right? And we're trying to win. Let's just say this person is 32. And then I come along and I'm trying to help them to see the positives, right? But we're racing against each other. Well, guess what? They're 32. They've been believing this about themselves for the most 32 years of life. Okay. I'll give them the benefit of the doubt and say they had some good years. So they've been believing this for 24 years of their life. But then I come along and I want them to see the positive. Well, if I just came along, in essence, they have a 24-year head start in this race, right? Remember when you were a kid and you would give some people, parents would give their kids a head start, like, okay, you go up 20 feet and then I'm still going to race you and hopefully you'll still win, right? We would let them win, right? But here it's the same thing. This person has a 24-year head start and then I'm trying to beat them. You're never going to catch up. You, the person that is trying to give them the positives, you're never going to catch up. It's just not going to work. So don't play that game. Don't play that race. Change the rule. Instead of me catching up to them, I'm going to still run, right? Because I'm trying to get them to see the positives. I'm still trying to run towards them. But while I'm running towards them, I'm going to have them run back towards me. So as a coach or a therapist, I'm going to do certain things that will help them to start seeing themselves. I'm no longer going to deposit positively into them because they're not going to see me. They won't believe me. They won't hear me. It's a waste of your breath and your time and your existence. Don't do that. Instead, you start changing how they are seeing themselves, which means they're now meeting you where you are as opposed to you trying to catch up to where they are. Okay. But in essence, when we discount the positives, there are many positive things that are happening. They just choose not to see it. And I won't say refuse because they want to, but they have so much practice in their head of thinking about the negative stuff that they rehearse that so much. It's as if they are going into this cabinet and all of the folders in the front of the cabinet are negative stuff. And they're just not yet getting to the place where they are at the back of the cabinet, which is where the positive things are. But yet we still need to bring that out and move those things forward and move the negative things back. All right. Point number 5 in our cognitive distortions, jumping to conclusions. Oh, this is like my favorite when it comes to relationships. Okay. Don't get me wrong. All these other ones you could definitely do in a relationship, but jumping to conclusions is definitely something that happens in relationships. And y'all know I love attachment, so you knew it was coming. And it definitely happens with those that have anxious attachment. It's 2 types of jumping to conclusions. One is called mind reading. This is where you assume that the people are reacting negatively to you when there's no definite evidence of this. How many times have we been in a relationship and you are upset and arguing with Bae and you're like, well, you did or said such and such. They didn't even mean it the way that you heard it, saw it, or experienced it. And you don't even have evidence of it, but you react negatively, right? Because you read their mind that that's how they meant it. All right. I can't even tell you the countless times. And I know you're probably one of the people too, because we all have probably done this one a time or two. You read a text and you read it as if you are reading it as how the person sent it. So you put certain inflections and tones with certain words, hyping it up when that person probably didn't even look at it like that. But yet that's how we're seeing it. That's that anxious attachment coming into play because we're fearful of rejection. So we're hearing something a particular way because we are afraid of being rejected by this person. And therefore, we're seeing it negatively because those attachment fears have come out, that attachment alarm has been activated, and now we need to reconnect because we're in our head. Why? Because we have jumped to a conclusion that probably wasn't there, okay? Now, the second type of jumping to conclusions will be identified as fortune tellers. So this is where you predict that things will turn out badly. Whereas, remember, you still can be in a relationship doing stuff like this, but you don't have to have all experiences with being in a partner to be a person who jumps to conclusions because you're fortune telling. But these are people who, no, we can't do that because such and such will happen. It's like, wait a minute, let's weigh all our options. Let's think about everything clearly. Let's rationalize, and then we'll make a decision. Now, these are people who instead you get the thought or the point out and they're like, no, we can't do that because such and such will happen. They are automatically assuming the worst. And we don't want to do that. Ways that we prevent that is not to jump to a conclusion. Again, weighing out all of our options. Going back to that example I gave you with the security guard, he's in the room looking at all the camera lenses of all the angles of the building. If you're a person that fortune tells, jumping to conclusion, just stop, Look at all the different angles that could possibly exist. All of them can be bad, okay? And if that were the case, then why is the one that you come up with? Why is that the one that works? That's because you're trying to control things, future oriented, and we have to be careful not to do that. All right, point number 6, when it comes to cognitive distortions, magnification or minimization, okay? Now, if I relate it to attachment, magnification would be anxious attachment individuals. Minimization would more than likely be an avoidant. But what are they? It's when you either blow things way out of proportion or you shrink the importance inappropriately, okay? So you're not doing this correctly. We're doing it inappropriately. So when we magnify something, here's an example related to relationship stuff. Oh, why is she talking to you? And it's just like, what? To give you an example, oh, this was so funny. It was years ago. So years ago in high school, well, decades ago in high school, me and my best friend used to have this crush on the same guy. We knew we didn't have a chance with this guy. We were freshmen. He was a senior, and he dated this girl who was a freshman. She was cute on the cheer team. Not saying it's typical, but yeah, I am saying it's typical because it was. Anyhow, we would kind of know him because we would see him in the lunchroom, walking through the hall, stuff like that. So you see people regularly the same place, you just generally say hi. So my friend was walking down the hallway, coming to meet me so we could go to lunch. And this couple were together. He's approaching his girlfriend in the hallway. My friend is getting ready to pass him. So think of it like this. The young girl is at her locker. Let's just say she's facing north, okay? And then my friend is walking in that same direction. So she's facing north, and she is ahead of the girl that's at her locker. And then the guy is walking towards his girlfriend, thus towards my friend, thus he's facing south, right? So they are all looking at each other. He can look at his girlfriend face to face, and he can look at my friend face to face. But he passes my friend before he gets to his girlfriend. And he said, hi. Well, my friend can hear the conversation. There's no one else here in the hallway because our high school was big. It's a lot to explain. So it was a big high school. They're the only people in this particular hallway. It was a lot of hallways. And then she was late for lunch too. So anyhow, he says hi to my friend. And when my friend says hi, and she keeps going, right? She's not fanning out because we're crushing on them. We had to keep it cool, right? We didn't want to be embarrassed. So she says hi and keeps going. But inside is like, woo! Okay, really excited, very, very excited. And then when when my friend walks away, he gets to his girlfriend. And my friend can hear his girlfriend saying, why did you talk to her like that? And he's like, what are you talking about? And she was like, I saw the way you said hi to her. He was like, girl, you act like I asked her for her bra size. You tripping. Now, that's a great example of the girlfriend magnified a situation and just totally blew it out of proportion. He simply said hi to my friend. There's nothing wrong with being cordial and mannerable, right? She blew that out of proportion. But if I'm being honest, I'm probably using this in the wrong context, but if I'm being honest, when she got to me and she told me the story, I'm like, girl, he said hi to you. Are you kidding me? That means he knows you. Oh my gosh. And you didn't say anything, right? It was important to us, right? I'm like, girl, you should have said something back. And she was like, I did. I said hi. She minimized it, of course. Now, it wasn't inappropriate in this context. She appropriately minimized it, but it's an example of minimizing it because she's fanning out, right? Because she's crushing on him. He actually sees her, knows her to some degree in her mind, right? And says hi, but she minimized it like, hey, it's no big deal. I do this every day, all day, right? To just give you an example of what it could look like. But when we minimize something inappropriately, that's an example of your significant other comes home from work. Oh my gosh, my boss came to me and gave me a raise and told me I was doing such a wonderful job that they promoted me, or my boss is leaving the company and talked to the president said I was a great person, that should be the one to take over their position, and said that they were leaving in a week and they were going to train me the next week for their position. And I am now running the department. And you're like, oh, wow, that was nice. That's cool. Right? That person has a whole bunch of excitement and you're just like, that's nice. Right? That's important, but you are minimizing that importance inappropriately. Okay. So that's the sixth cognitive distortion: magnification or minimization. Magnifying something where you're blowing something out of proportion. It wasn't that serious. It wasn't that deep, but you're making it that way by, just amplifying things, or minimizing it to the place where you are shrinking the importance of something inappropriately, which means you should actually be honoring it or acknowledging it. Okay. Now, point number 7, when it comes to cognitive distortions, this is the 7th type. I shouldn't say point, because it's the 7th type. All these I've been identifying are different versions of cognitive distortions, and this is the 7th version. Emotional reasoning. All right, we're going to have to break this one down. Here's why. All right, emotional reasoning. Here's the place here. Some people will hear this as, see, I know we shouldn't be all emotional. That's not right. That's not healthy. No. Simmer down, take a pause, have a seat. This is what we're saying when it comes to emotional reasoning. You reason from how you feel, meaning you are allowing your feelings to guide you. Feelings are not guides. That's not what they are for. They should not be directing us. They are simply a gauge for us to understand where we are emotionally and that we can appropriately handle that emotion. So when there's emotional reasoning, we can say things like, I feel like an idiot. Yeah, I'm an idiot. Just because you may feel silly like an idiot doesn't mean that you are one, right? Or if we don't feel like doing something, then we put it off. Well, some days I don't feel like going to work, but I have to still get up and go, right? We don't allow our emotions to determine what it is that we are doing. All right. Now, let me explain that, because sometimes people are like, that doesn't make sense, or you can get yourself in trouble. Here's how people will see that maybe you can get yourself in trouble. So if I am afraid of something, or I have this gut feeling, then my emotion is leading me. And Dr. Sadia, you are saying that with emotional reasoning, I should not let it lead me. So therefore, this gut feeling that I have, I should go ahead and do the thing anyway. No. So let's give an example, okay? Think of a compass, a map, and an actual guide, okay? The person that, if you're on a tour, your tour guide leads you on the tour and shows you all the things that are happening, right? Okay. A compass tells you the direction that you are going. It indicates north, west, southeast, northwest, southeast, whatever, right? It simply pinpoints the direction in which you are going. A map gives you the picture of what things will look like if you continue to follow these steps. And then the guide basically directs you as to, this is where you are going, this is what we are doing. When it comes to emotional reasoning, we're saying that you are allowing your feelings to determine how it is you are thinking about yourself. And this is how we work. Whatever it is I am doing, it is a result of how I am feeling. Whatever I am feeling is a result of how I've been thinking. But just because I am feeling upset doesn't mean I should go and punch the person that has made me upset, right? Just because I am upset and angered, or let's just say, just because I'm hurt does not mean that I am worthless, right? My feelings If we are not careful, our feelings will direct what it is that we do, and that can be very unhealthy, or it can direct how it is that we see ourselves, how we think about ourselves, and that could also be very unhealthy as well as very deadly, because many people have committed suicide because of how they have felt. Feelings are temporary. Feelings will change. So going back to those 3 examples, if I follow the tour guide and I continue following them, or if I continue following the direction where this map says from where I am to where I'm trying to go, if I follow the tour guide or the map, then guess what? I'm going to head to a particular direction, and it may not be healthy for me if I am doing that in the sense that I am following my emotions. We do not follow our emotions. They are simply an indicator for us to know where we are, what's happening. Great tool, great gauge to use, but it should not be used as a roadmap or a tour guide. It's like a compass. It tells us where we are. And if I'm headed in the wrong direction, then the compass has told me where I am. But if it's telling me hey, you're angered, if I continue to head in that direction, I might be on an episode of Snapped, right? We've seen those episodes. Person is snapped. Now they're in prison because they made a horrible decision in the moment, because they let their feelings guide them. Now, this one is really important, guys, because you have to know that your feelings are important, right? But it lets you know where you are. When we are jealous, first of all, people don't get jealous. Well, most people don't get jealous for no reason at all. They get jealous because there's a reason to. But the jealousy is popped up because I can sense it. But if I don't, let me put it this way. If I allow my jealousy to get the best of me, then I can do something wrong. If I am saddened for too long and I continue to follow that path, that sadness is taking me, it could cause me to do damage or hurt or harm to myself, maybe someone else, right? But if I use my emotions like a compass, it tells me where I am. I can change the direction. How do I change the direction? I simply turn around. That's how a compass works, right? We're in our car and we're listening to the GPS tell us where to go, but it's saying, turn right, which is going east. And we know, wait a minute, I thought this was west. Well, how do we get west? We have to turn around. Or we're just looking at a compass in our car and we're headed north, but we're like, no, I thought it was south. We have to turn around. The compass tells us where we are, the direction that we're headed, but we can change it. We are in control. Therefore, we turn around. Okay. All right. That one is a little bit tricky. Now, going back to your gut, remember, your gut is really the Holy Spirit telling you. How many people do you know have said, oh, I should have followed my gut? I know a number of people, as a result of 9/11, said they followed their gut. And what was it? I was actually listening to a story. I can't remember what it was, but a woman said she was on the 80th floor and she followed her gut because her gut told her to run. But her boss said, everyone, because they saw the other tower being hit. And they said, her boss said, everyone stay here. We're going to be safe. We're on the 80th floor. We're going to be okay. She said her gut told her to run. She was on the 80th floor. She was able to, she said, whatever. She got up, left, didn't even put her shoes on. I don't know why her shoes are off, but nevertheless. And she ran and she said she made it to the 61st floor. She said she made it out of the building, right? Because she's telling the story. But everybody on the 80th building did not, because the second plane hit and unfortunately they were killed. She listened to her gut. Gut is different from emotion because the gut is not an emotion. It's that little feeling on the inside of you on which something is not right or is telling you what you should do. Notice if it's telling you something, that's not an emotion. That's a direction. That's information. That's not an emotion. When it comes to something doesn't quite sit right in our stomach, we have to be careful, because when we have that happening, pay attention. You might not necessarily know the emotion, but that's why it's important to be wise in our emotional vocabulary, because you need to know, what is this thing that I'm feeling? Sometimes, we don't even need to know. We just know something isn't quite right. I'm a person, whereas I can go around people and I watch people first. I don't engage. I'm not really a big talker. It's hard to believe. And even though I have a podcast and I teach and I speak, but when I'm not doing those things, I am quiet. I'm sitting off to myself and by myself. I don't have a large circle of friends. I used to always want to be popular, but that requires you to be out and about and an extrovert, and that's just not me. So wishful thinking. But whenever I get in situations and I'm watching, I can always get a feeling when someone or something is not right. And I'll explain it to someone and they'll be like, well, what is it? I don't know. Guess what? I don't need to know, because I just know it's not right. So I don't have to know what type of not right it is. I just need to know this person is not right, or this thing, or this time, this place is not right. Your gut never lets you down, but that is different. That is different than when it comes to being led by your emotions. Okay. All right. That one is a bit dicey, because I know I talk about emotions a lot here. And I always know I say, we need to be aware of our emotions, but it's difference between emotional reasoning and just being aware of our gut feeling or being led by our emotions, because emotional reasoning is you allowing your feelings to direct what it is that you are thinking about yourself, or things that you are going to do as a result of these emotions. And it's not healthy, because your emotions are a compass, not a map or a guide. Okay. All right. Cognitive distortion number 8. We're almost done. All right. Should statements. Now, I've talked about this a little bit already, so this one is kind of familiar. Should statements are where you criticize yourself or even other people with shoulda, coulda, woulda. Should have done this. I shouldn't have done that. I must do this before whenever, or I ought to get this done before a wank, or I have to do this, right? Those are the cousins of the shoulds, okay? The musts, the oughts, and the have tos are really similar offenders to the shouldas. So think of them like cousins to them, okay? But in essence, what's happening, you're criticizing yourself or someone else on statements because of things that you should have done or things that you should do, right? And we have to be careful, because we should be thinking things through. And if we're thinking things through, then there are reasons for everything. It doesn't mean that we need to criticize. We might not have all the information. I know a lot of times, think of it as far as an office setting, right? You, the employee, then there's the manager, and then let's just say there's the president of the company. When we're the employee, we can look at a lot of stuff that we're like, this is just stupid. Why are we doing this? This is dumb. But we don't have all the facts, right? But we'll say they should do this, or they shouldn't have done that. They should have said this. We can come up with a lot of different things. We are criticizing them when we really just don't have all the information. But guess what? That manager has more information than we do, because they've gotten it from that president. And the president said, this is the direction we're going. Go and tell the employees this. They don't need to know everything, but this will give them enough so that they can move forward and have some content. And then later on, when it's appropriate, if it's appropriate, we can share the rest. And then later on, when we become aware, like, oh, I didn't know all of that was happening. I know when I was younger, in my 20s, oh my gosh, I would say so many things were just foolish. As I got older, I've learned that whenever something doesn't make sense to me, at the level of pay and where I am, it probably doesn't make sense. And that's okay, because it's above my pay grade, right? They say that in the armed services a lot, right? That's classified information. Might not make sense to you because it's classified. That's above your pay grade. When something is above our pay grade, it probably doesn't make sense to us, but it also probably means that we don't have all the information. So we probably shouldn't make those should statements or shoulda statements, because we just don't have all the facts. And therefore, we need not to be hard on ourselves or other people. But in the same sense, even with the knowledge that we do have, we make the best decisions with the information that we have. And when we make these should statements, we're either in the past. And if I'm in the past, then that means I have more information. Hindsight is 2020. So I've overcome that point, and I'm now saying I should have done that. Well, guess what? I didn't have all that information then. That I obtained that information afterwards. So therefore, I can't say I should have done something when I didn't know what was available to me then, but I'm only seeing it after the fact. And then when it comes to the future, well, yet again, I don't have all of that information. I can only make a decision based on the knowledge and content of what I have now. When I get to that place and point, it will be based on the information and knowledge that I have. Should I get more? Maybe my decision will change. But until then, I should do this, because I'm criticizing myself for information that I possibly do not know. Okay. All right. Cognitive distortion number 9, labeling. Labeling is when we identify with our shortcomings. So instead of saying, this person is bossy, or, bossy, it can sometimes be insensitive. It's a label. Is the person bossy, or is the person just, meticulous, and they're concerned about how they want things to be? If someone maybe doesn't make the best decisions when it comes to relationships, they always pick losers. Well, maybe they have a really big heart that allows them to really be encapsulated very easily. We have to recognize that when we label ourselves or other people, we're looking at the negative, and there's always a good side to something. So sometimes we have to look at the good and not really just identifying with a person's shortcomings. It really kind of goes back to the 4th cognitive distortion I talked about, which was discounting the positives, because they exist. We're just ignoring them. And I get it. When we label someone, the trait in which we are labeling them probably is somewhat accurate. But it doesn't mean that we have to label them like that. They shouldn't have to be known as being that. There are other parts about them. And this is where we need to develop positive sentiment override, where we look at the good, not focusing on the bad. Okay. That one's pretty simple. All right. The last one is, remember I told you I'm going to identify the top 10. So this last one is personalization and blame. This one, if we're not careful, it causes us to be in woe is me, poor is me world. Okay. Here's where we blame ourselves for something that we were not entirely responsible for, or we blamed other people, and we overlook ways that our own attitudes or our own behaviors may even contribute to the problem. Okay, so let me break that down. Personalization and blame. Okay, personalizing something, making it sensitive to solely me, or blaming myself, or blaming someone else. Okay, most cases, blaming someone else. All right. When we blame ourselves for something that we weren't entirely responsible for, you can't put everything on you, right? You don't have to carry that baggage, right? Meaning you could have a situation where you and a group of people made a decision to do a particular project a particular way, and then the boss didn't like it. And you're like, but it was all my fault. I should have been the one to say such and such. I remember one time I was in high school and I was running track, and we had this meet or race, whatever. And my team, we came in second. I can't remember if it was second or third. I believe it was second. And after the race, I was blaming myself, like, oh my gosh, I should have ran harder, should have ran faster. This is all my fault. I probably said that a few times. And this one girl, I think her name was Yolanda. Hey, Yolanda. This one girl, Yolanda, I guess she got tired of hearing it, or unless she knew some psychology, or a family member was a psychologist or therapist, because she was like, over and over again, Sadia, it's not your fault. We're a team. We all contributed to this. I think the last time I said it, she said, yes, it is your fault. Okay. All right. Now what? So it is your fault. Now what? And quickly it snapped me out of my stuff, because I was like, this girl is good. Now, my father was a counselor, so I should have known better. But as soon as she said it, I knew what I was doing. I was blaming myself. And I was blaming myself for something that was not entirely my fault, or something that I was entirely responsible for. All right, now you can also blame other people, and you overlook the ways that you're contributing to the issue. So it's always somebody else. It's never you. If it's always somebody else, and it's never you, let's just take a look at things. If it's always someone else in all the different situations, examples, periods, places, points, work, in life, guess what? You're the common denominator. You're always there. So how is it that you are always at these places where it's someone else's fault? I'm not saying that it's all your fault, but we have to be able to take ownership in the things that are pertaining to us. And if I'm being honest, it's hard, right? It's hard to look at ourselves. It's hard to get constructive criticism, because even constructive criticism hurts, whether it's us or someone telling it to us. We have to just realize, I don't like being hurt, and that's okay. It's not always somebody else's fault. We may have to change our own way of seeing, believing about ourselves, or thinking about ourselves, and our behaviors need to be changed in order for us to change how we are seeing something, okay? Personalization and blame are really big, because we'll think about ourselves and it can cause us to be either angered at other people or depressed because of ourselves or other people, all right? So those are the cognitive distortions, everyone. So all or nothing, overgeneralization, mental filters, discounting the positives, jumping to conclusions, magnification or minimization, emotional reasoning, should statements, labeling, personalization, and blame. All of these are examples of how we're in our head and we're ruminating on something that has happened or is about to happen because it's happening in the future. You want to be careful, because you don't want to get caught up in ways that you are going to cause yourself really to be hurt, upset, or disappointed when it didn't have to really be seen in that manner. All right, so let me do a quick point to give you. I'm not going to go through all 10, but in essence, in order to give you some things, if you have challenges with cognitive distortions and you saw yourself in one of those 10 or a few of those 10, that does happen. It's nothing really wrong with you if you have more than one. But these are some ways that you can actually challenge your automatic thoughts, okay? Some of the things I want you to be careful in identifying. You want to actually examine the evidence. Don't just go off of what your first thought is, which would probably be negative in identifying one of those distortions. Instead, examine the evidence. What proof do you have that that is actually the case, right? Look for the evidence. I want you to also think in shades of gray. You know, there are other vantage points from where you need to look. You want to actually look at this in a way where you can see it in a better sense, thus giving you not just two options that exist, thus the good or the bad, but, you know, the things that are in between. And then I would say another good point, there are a number of them, I'm just kind of summarizing a few. I'll think it would be good to do a cost benefit analysis. If I looked at everything as far as those three, I would say examine the evidence or do a cost benefit analysis, right? So in business, right, you know, what is the cost? What is the benefit? And now I need to look at this thing. So one is looking at the cost of this thing. What is this costing me? And you go through go ahead, take your time, go through all of the negative things that you're identifying, but then look at the situation from a benefit, right? That's the positive stuff, and write down those. Spend some time there, because if you're having difficulties coming up with the positives and that list is way shorter than the cost, which is the negative, or the effort, the sacrifice, you kind of want to spend more time looking at the benefits. But be truthful with yourselves. Don't just come up with a list of negatives. Be honest and take some time so that you're able to go through it to identify the positives as well as the negatives. Then you'll be able to see and think a little bit differently and hopefully a lot better. All right. Okay. All right, guys, you did it. Those are the 10 cognitive distortions. I hope if you did see yourself, you're able to see how that can affect you, and then just take a look in your past and just see how it has affected you. Do you like the outcome? If you don't like the outcome, then I think it's a good time to start now to change things. It's the end of the year. So we all love to start anew in the new year. So if you see those cognitive distortions popping up, then I want you to take charge, do that cost of benefit analysis or examine the evidence so that you can start practicing changing how you're thinking. Okay. Remember, I told you before, if you want to change a habit, you have to change the things that you are doing. If you don't like the things that you are doing, then you change the ways that you are feeling. If you don't like how you are feeling, then you change the things that you are thinking. And if you don't like how you are thinking, then we have to change what you are thinking about, which means if I'm thinking negatively, I now have to make every concerted effort to change that so I can think positively. All right. All right, guys, that is how we get out of our head. I hope this episode has been beneficial to you. And you know how I like to close out the show. It is normally taking our temperature with our like it, love it, leave it tips. But instead, because it's Thanksgiving, I'm going to switch it up. And when I switch it up, I'm going to do thankful, grateful, and blessed. I had this little plaque that's like in my living area. Yes, I'm one of those people. It's black. Yeah, it's a metal art. It's great. But it says thankful, grateful, and blessed. So instead of doing a like it, love it, leave it tips in honor of Thanksgiving, let's go ahead and leave out today with the thankful, grateful, and blessed. I'm going to say that I'm thankful for the fact that we can see ourselves, and whether that is good or bad, we have the power within ourselves to change it to be what it is that we want it to be. So I'm thankful that we are always in control to lead a better life if we so desire. We just have to make the decision. We don't even have to take the first step. We just need to make the decision to change things, and things will then begin changing for the better. What am I grateful about? I'm grateful that we have tools. The cognitive distortions that I gave you, it comes out of cognitive behavioral therapy, but those that were identified, well-known therapist, David Burns. I am grateful in the fact that he was able to identify those points, and he has a lot of books out. One of the books that is really good is Feeling Good. So if this is an issue for you, you can grab that book and do some self-help, self-care in that area and practice that. So I'm grateful that we have various tools that will help us if we cannot go to a therapist or we don't feel like we need to, but we know we need to make some changes. I'm grateful that we have these resources out there. And bless. What would I say is bless about for this episode? I guess at the end of the day, I'm blessed to be able to be here, to be able to share some important tips, tools, and resources. I said at the beginning when I started this podcast, I wanted to do something outside of the therapy room to help people. And information that is commonplace to me is not common to everyone else. And maybe you can't get before a therapist to be able to learn these things. Cognitive distortions is not a common conversation that we would have with people, but I'm grateful that I was able to share this conversation with you, and I'm blessed to be in a position to have a platform in order to do so. So that is my thankful, grateful, and blessed tip for today. All right, guys, you know how I like to close out the show. Don't forget to rate and review us wherever you have downloaded. We are down to the final episodes. That's right. It's only 3 more to go, or is it 2? It's only 2 more episodes because this was the 3rd one. It's 2 more to go before we are going to close out. I am totally enjoying you all. I hope you all are enjoying the podcast. And of course, I said that we have some great things that are coming, and I will be sharing those things in our final 2 episodes. And I look forward to sharing this and what we have new coming up in 2023. For everyone that's been listening and rocking with me for these past 5 years, I love you and appreciate you. God bless you. And I thank God for you. And I hope to see you all in 2023 as we head to our new platform, tools and resources, doing things bigger and better to help you all to experience the best and the most from life and love. That's it for me for today. Happy Thanksgiving, everyone. I'm Dr. Sadia, helping you to give and receive the love you both want and need. Till next time, be blessed, everyone. Bye-bye.